Hey everyone, welcome back to the Through the Front Door page. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a topic that can be very sensitive for some people. It can be very difficult to engage in. Today's episode is called The Elephant in the Room, Telling the Truth About Your Story. And so story work can be very hard. It can be very taxing for some people, including myself. It was very difficult as I started to engage in my own story work and look back at the story of my life with an honest view. I realized that from 0 to 10, I didn't have a ton of memories. And that was a big indicator of early childhood trauma that I had to kind of dig through and work with some different techniques to help remember some of those, along with have conversations with people in my family and in my immediate circle that were honest and helped me to see things for what they were. But the difficulty in telling the truth about our story is that there's typically two camps that people fall into. There is the honor camp and the honesty camp. And so let me explain the two. The honor camp is we take a look at our story and we look back and we will protect the image of our family unit, of our caregivers, of our friends at the cost of the truth. And so I'll give an example. Someone may grow up in an abusive household and they'll look at that situation and still go, but I had a great childhood. They'll try to rationalize away what happened. They'll try to honor their family unit in order to protect it, but at the cost of the truth of their story, which is they grew up in an abusive household. And I'll give you an example of my life. In my own personal story, I fell into the honor camp. I wasn't willing to tell the truth about certain things and situations that happened in my life. And that was at the cost of the truth. And it wasn't until I actually looked at things for what they actually were that I was able to get a better handle on what happened and find out more details about my own personal story. So there's the honor camp, but then there's also the honesty camp. And people who fall into this camp typically will take a look at everything that has happened in their story and they'll blame shift off of themselves and onto their story. And so it sounds something like, well, if they had just done that better, I wouldn't be this way. If they hadn't said that, I wouldn't have reacted like that. If that person had been there, then I wouldn't have ended up like this. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. It's the blame shifting off themselves onto the other people in their story. It's all their fault. It's not theirs. They're just simply the victim all the time. And so the reality is that there's truth in both of these things, right? We need to have some form of honor to protect our family. We don't need to be airing our business out on social media or to everyone we know. But we also need to tell the truth at the same time. And so somewhere in the middle of that is what I would call humility. And I personally think that that's where health is found, is in the merger of both honor and honesty. We need to look at our situation and sometimes go, you know what? That's really messed up that happened. That's not okay. And again, we're not trying to demonize parents, caregivers, siblings, friends, whoever, relatives. We're not trying to demonize or paint them in a light that is a caricature. We're trying to look at the situation for what it actually was as an adult, as that has a fully formed brain. If you're in your mid-20s or late 20s, early 30s as a guy, where you have your prefrontal cortex, the PFC, where your intellect and your rationale is, and you can look at this objectively and go, you know what, that's pretty messed up. But you also look at it and have compassion and go, yeah, they didn't do the best that they could, because most of us don't do the best we can all the time. Whether that be at work, if you have kids, with your kids, with family members, with partners, with whoever. We don't always do the best we can. But they gave the best they had. And there's a very important difference between the two. I know that in many of my relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, coworkers, whatever, I don't always give, or I didn't give the best that I could. But in certain situations, I can look back and go, you know what? I really did give the best that I had then. And it wasn't much. And I've grown since then, and I can give more now. And so it's the merger of the two that we find humility to look at our story honestly and go, yeah, that's not okay. Like that's not okay. But I also can have compassion and empathy as an adult and go, but you gave the best you had. We need to have both, and that gives us the ability to engage our story honestly. And maybe you find yourself in one of those camps and you're like, you know what? I never really told the truth about my story, and it's pretty messed up. And that can create some anger, and that's okay for a season to be angry, because that anger can move to passion, and passion can move to change. Or maybe we have to take a look at our story and go, yeah, those things did happen. It was bad, but I also became an adult who was responsible for my own decisions. And I was the victim, but I'm not the victim where I can choose not to be the victim anymore. And that's the flip side of it, where not only did I not tell the truth about my story, but I also, in certain circumstances, was always the victim. I couldn't own my own side of the street. Yeah, certain things happen and they push me in a trajectory and in a direction, but I ultimately made my own decisions as an adult. And so having both creates humility to engage our story. So I just want to leave us with some questions that were asked to me that I think are very helpful to reflect on. First one is this: given the facts about our story, am I unwilling to see either parent or caregiver in their proper light? Am I unwilling to engage in the story and go, yeah, that's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow that happened in the honor camp, and tell the truth? Or if I'm in the honesty camp, go, yeah, they gave the best that they had, and maybe it wasn't all their fault. Am I unwilling to see either parent or caregiver in their proper light? Number two, given the facts of my story, am I unwilling to accept personal responsibility for my actions that I chose to do? I got to clean my side of the street. I can't control other people. And number three, are there large gaps in my memories during my childhood years that seem odd or off? If that's the case, and there wasn't some like TBI, traumatic brain injury, when you were younger, you might have traumatic events that have happened, and as a defense mechanism and a survival mechanism, your brain was just like, we're not going to remember those. And that's okay. It's okay, because going back into those is very slow and hard work. I've had to do it. Just something to think about. Hopefully this video is helpful. Again, not trying to demonize or bring up dirty laundry in my own family dynamic or in yours, but we need to tell the truth about our stories. And we need to have the balance of honor and honesty so that we can move forward and take a step. If you have any questions or comments or anything, feel free to reach out. Until next time, take care, guys.